Hi again, guys. This is Brandon with Entertainment Buffet. I am still chatting with BriElle. You may recognize her from a little video on the channel called Pizza Delivery. But I didn't want to just talk with her in that interview about pizza delivery itself, but she has something that is a awesome experience that I have not known anyone who's done this. And so when I heard about it, I was like, I would love to hear more in depth and like kind of ask questions about what this experience was like. BriElle, you were on Wheel of Fortune.
Oh yeah.
And so before we get started, like when did this happen? Because this isn't recently. But yeah, if you'd love to kind of break us down how you got on, when this was, what was going on.
Yeah, sure. So this journey started in 2016. It was right around, it was just after my birthday. So it would have been in like July or August of 2016. Um, my boyfriend at the time surprised me one day and took me to the Wheelmobile in Rosemont, Illinois. So the Wheelmobile is this bus that tours across the country, like looking for Wheel of Fortune contestants. And I had seen it and I was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we went to this? Ha ha. And then he surprised me and actually took me to Wheelmobile, which was awesome. So the way it worked was, it was at the Rosemont Convention Center, and you like fill out a form with just like your basic information. And then I think they let maybe like 100, 150 people in. And they had like a fake Pat Sajak and a fake Vanna White, and a mock Wheel of Fortune board. And they would call people out of the audience completely at random to play the game. So they would like pick your name like out of a hat. And then if you get in, where it differed from the show is that if you guessed a letter wrong, you went back into the audience, then they picked somebody else out. And
Gotcha.
people
So it was almost like an audition process, basically.
Yes. And people were like wearing, like they would win like hats and t-shirts, and like nobody won actual money. It was just like for funsies. So I never got on stage, and my boyfriend never got on stage, but they were saying like, oh, just because you're not on stage doesn't mean that you don't have a chance to be on Wheel. So I found out later that they like had scouts out in the audience looking at people, like watching their reactions, seeing if they were like saying things under their breath, trying to guess the answers. So flash forward to November of that year. So like 4 or 5 months later, I get a letter in the mail saying that I had been invited to a private audition for Wheel of Fortune. And I was like, no way, like I wasn't on stage, like this is crazy, like no way that this is real. But it had like the seal and it like came from Los Angeles and stuff. So I was like, okay.
And that's where you read in the letter, they're like, we saw you on Pizza Delivery. No, I'm just kidding.
Plot twist.
Big
like,
fan. Big
we
fan.
Love you. Kat loves your video. So yeah, so I went to a private audition in, it was like right after Thanksgiving, at, I think it was the Drake Hotel downtown. And it was like 50 people, and like sure enough it was legit. And I remember talking to other people around me about how we all thought it was fake, but here it wasn't. It was a real audition. So it was about, like I said, it was about 50 people.
Oh wow.
And it was 4 producers from the show, and they sat us all in a room together, and they started talking about like, this is what we're looking for in contestants, like you're here for a reason. But then they were like very vague about it. They're like, but you're invited to an audition for a reason. So then the private audition was 2 parts. So they would play a round of the game on a whiteboard, and they would randomly point to you in your chair, and they would ask you to stand up and say a letter and then sit back down. And if you were ready to solve it, solve it. But they wanted to hear that you can say a letter with gusto and with volume and whatnot. So we did that until every 50 something of us got up and said a letter or guessed the puzzle. And then the part 2 of that was a writing test. So everybody got a piece of paper, and it was, I don't know what the term, but like where they stagger it so you have a different paper than the person next to you, but there's only like three actual different sheets you can get. But it was all different. It was like 20 puzzles that were like half or a quarter way filled out. And you had 5 minutes to fill in as many as you can. So, and it would have like on the show, it would have like a category like, what are you doing, or animal, or occupation. And they told you that even if you didn't know the whole thing, but you could figure out certain letters, like write it in. And I remember guessing a lot of them. And then some that I was able to figure out a couple letters or a couple words, but I just did as much as I could in 5 minutes. And then they wanted to see like if you had any thought processes, like if you had like letters on the side and you like scribbled anything out, do that. So I did that. And then they're like, okay, great. We'll let you all know. And I remember that they kept certain people for like that, like they wanted additional like takes from or whatever, but I wasn't asked to stay longer. So I was like, oh fuck, they aren't interested in me. Oh well. And then they're like, just because we don't ask you to stay, it doesn't mean anything. So I said, all right. And then flash forward again to it was literally the day after Christmas, because I was living in Edgewater. I came home for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day on the South Side with my parents. And then I went home the following day, and I remember opening up my mailbox, and then I saw the fucking seal on the envelope, the Wheel of Fortune seal. And I was like, no way, no way, no way. And I like ran through the door and I threw everything on the floor, and I sat and I opened up the letter, and it said, congratulations, you have been selected to be a contestant on Wheel of Fortune. And
you got the golden ticket.
Lost my mind. And I called my parents. I called my dad, and my dad was at work, and I was like, Dad, Christmas came a day late. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I got a Wheel of Fortune. And then my mom, I called her and I just started singing the theme song, and she like immediately knew and like lost her mind. It was so wholesome. It was so cute. And so the letter said that I would be contacted for a taping within 12 months from the day of getting that letter. So I didn't know when it was going to happen. I knew it was just going to be at some point within the year.
Some point between Christmas 2016 and Christmas 2017, basically.
Yes. So then
So actually one thing I want to ask real quick. So obviously your parents are freaking out. How at that point, or whether it was like your whole life, but just leading up to this point, how big of fans were you and your family of Wheel of Fortune? Obviously pretty big fans, but like I have to ask, because everyone's family has like a thing. Some it's Wheel of Fortune, some it's Price is Right, some it's like maybe Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So like how big was this in your household growing up?
This was huge. Like my family is really big on game shows, period. Like I grew up watching Price is Right, Wheel of Fortune, Weakest Link was really big. And then later, like old episodes of like the Newlywed Game and Match Game and shit like that. So game shows as a whole were super, super big in my house.
Really competitive, I'm guessing.
Yeah, like competitive, but in a very like cheerful way, not in a like facetious like haha I beat you. More of like, oh yes, I want to be the first to get this right.
Yeah, like you guys should be on Family Feud probably.
Yeah, well, no, we would be really good on Family Feud. Like, and I'm Italian. Like my family is full of very talkative characters, so like we would be perfect. But Wheel of Fortune and Price is Right in particular were two that we watched like habitually every day growing up. Wheel of Fortune was of course easier because it was on in the evening, so I would be home from school or from work. So that was a lot easier to watch than Price is Right. But yeah, it was a huge deal. And my dad was actually on a game show in the 80s called Time Machine, which like nobody knows about, nobody remembers. And he was on it when he was maybe, it was in 2017. So that was what, 3 years ago? So I was 23 going on 24 when it was on. And then I think so I think my dad was a little bit older than me. He was like 27 or 28 when he was on Time Machine. And he won baby furniture and wall-to-wall carpeting as like a single 20-something man, which was hilarious. So then that was like the ongoing joke of like, BriElle, whatever happens, you just have to do better than your dad.
I mean, you're a second generation game show contestant.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty funny. I had no idea that your dad was on one too.
Yeah, it was so funny. We found the VHS of it recently and we watched it, and it was so weird. And like the question, so Time Machine was all about guessing like years that things in history happened and things in pop culture.
Okay.
And the question that he like fucked up on was about the Sgt. Pepper's album by the Beatles, which is my favorite Beatles album. So when I watched that, I was so
You're like, how dare you?
Like, Dad, really? It's like, what? I didn't know. I'm sorry.
So obviously you guys are big game show fans, as you were telling me. And you get this awesome news. You know that it's sometime going to be in the next year. Did you start maybe like watching more or like training, like, yeah, I mean, not training, but you know what I mean? Like prepping, like it's not quite Jeopardy where you're going to be getting questions from all over, but like you got to be on it because at any point they can contact you and you're going to be on the show and you got to do better than your dad.
Yeah. I tried not to psych myself out too much because I felt like if I like overstudied, I would screw it up. But I did download the Wheel of Fortune app and I would play that a lot on my way to work. So that was my practice that I did. But I tried not to overkill and like overstimulate myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because that's one thing I would definitely see some people probably doing is like putting too much effort into it. So therefore, if they do get on and something happens, they're going to be really disappointed. Whereas like you're still living your life, playing it on the app, taking it easy because, this is just a cool opportunity and not like, like something that you're like, I was meant to do this.
Yes. And and I even knew then that like, no matter what happened, I was just going to be happy to have done it. Even if I won nothing, like it was just going to be like of course I wanted to do something impressive. But I just knew already it was going to be a worthwhile experience. So I didn't put too much pressure on myself to like win a ton of money or to get to the bonus round or anything.
Yeah, for sure. So, end of 2016 going into beginning of 2017. If you want to keep on going, when was it that you got contacted after you said it could be anywhere in the next 12 months?
So I got contacted at the end of February saying, hey, we would like you to fly out to LA in about 3 weeks. And I was like, ooh, okay. Because
were you working at the time and you had to be like, hey, oh, by the way, I'm going to go be on Wheel of Fortune? Need to use some PTO.
This was actually really convenient because I was in between jobs. So I didn't have to worry about it, which was awesome. We flew out, my parents, my brother and my grandmother, we flew out to LA beginning of March, and they told me that they wanted to include me on their Chicago week episode, which was so and like I love Chicago, like I'm a very proud Chicago girl, so like hearing I was gonna be on the Chicago episode was awesome.
Very fitting.
Yes. So we were out in March. We filmed it at the beginning of March. And then from taping to air, it was about 2 months. So it came out in May of 2017.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it happened. And was there, I'm guessing maybe some sort of NDA, like you maybe couldn't tell people, or like how strict were they?
They were very strict. Like I got this whole packet in the mail about like do's and don'ts.
Wow.
I couldn't talk about it. Yeah. So we filmed in March, aired in May. So for about 2.5 months, I knew the outcome. My family that went with me knew the outcome and we couldn't tell anybody.
Okay. So family did get to come.
Yeah. Cause they always like, I was allowed to have 4 guests in the audience.
Who'd you bring?
My parents, my brother, and my grandma.
Okay, awesome. I bet
Yeah.
all the families just like, no, I want to be in like the four.
So many, seriously, like I had an uncle that lives in California and he's like, I'm already here. You don't have to fly me. Let me go. It was really hard, like narrowing it down.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the taping itself then. So you get there with your family, and like what was it like as far as like how early did you have to get there? Was it like an all-day thing? Like I'd love to
Yeah.
hear about what it was like to be on set, and obviously they gave you this packet, but like what was it like actually being it, because this isn't live.
Yeah.
You can, people probably had to reshoot things and so forth. So yeah, I'd love to hear all about what it was like on the day.
Yeah. So they and this is my first time being on a professional studio, even like in a studio audience kind of setting. Like this is my first time experiencing anything like that. So I had no idea. Um, they asked all of the contestants to stay at the same hotel. So a bus came and picked us up at like 8 in the morning. And it was so weird, like waiting in the lobby and seeing a couple people dressed up really nice and then thinking, I think that's a Wheel of Fortune person, but I'm not sure, until eventually we all broke the ice and we're like, oh, we're all Wheel of Fortune people. So the bus took us to the studio, which is in Culver City in Southern California. And we started out, it was the same producers that did our private audition. So it was those four and then a couple other film crew people that met us. We got to walk around the set. The wheel is a lot smaller than it looks on TV, like physically smaller, but it weighs like more than 2,000 pounds. Like heavy. It is so heavy. So there were, they taped 6 shows in a day. So
Oh wow.
they had so 18, so they had 18 contestants, and then they had like 2 other people on standby as that were like local to California as like backup folk. So each of us, like, we got to go behind the wheel and like pose for a picture of us like holding the little buzzer. So I have that framed in our house. It was like the one that was on my Facebook profile picture. So we all took a picture behind the wheel. We all got to learn about like, so there's, you never see it when you watch TV, but to the upper left of the puzzle board is a tiny TV monitor, and it has all of the letters that have been guessed already, or that are already on the board. So a lot of times if you watch the show and you see people look up into the corner, they're looking at that screen. So we learned where that was.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So we learned about that. And then we had like a whole 45-minute lesson on how to spin the wheel, which is crazy. Like you had to handle the shit so delicately because it's super heavy, because they don't want anybody trying to fix it. But we got a whole rundown of like, you're supposed to, like, I remember them telling you had to do like a hitchhiker thumb, and then like, so you're supposed to like grip it like that and then put your thumb down and then spin the peg. And we all had to practice it, and they would make you do it. You had to do it a couple times if you didn't get, like, I didn't get it right the first time. So I had to do it like 3 or 4 times until I got it right.
Wow.
And then the next person would do it, which is crazy. And then, so we got like a little tour. We got the little instructions. They brought us back for lunch, and then they picked us in completely random order. They grouped us into 3s, and that would be your set for the show. And then when you were put into your 3s, the order that you were picked in determined what day of the week your show would air. So I think like my name was like 11th or 12th, which correlated to Wednesday. So I was going to be on the 3rd show that they taped that day, which was their Wednesday show.
Gotcha.
And then when you had your group of 3, each of you picked a ball out of a bag that had 1, 2, or 3 on it that determined your position on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked the blue spot, which apparently statistically does the least well of the 3, which I was like, oh, great. But yeah, like and right before, so they did all of that jazz, and then right before they got to taping, they had somebody from their legal department come and sit down with us, and they were like, you cannot tell anybody what happens here, and like you will lose anything, you will forfeit all money. And then they asked us about they were asking, I don't remember the name of it. They were asking us if anybody knew about these certain websites that people who are like hardcore Wheel of Fortune fans go and they like
Wheelheads, or I don't know what do they have like a one of those names, nicknames?
I feel like there is one and I just can't think of it. But like wheel watchers, that's the term, wheel watchers. But they were asking us like, have any of you been on these websites where all these like wheel watchers are? And I was like, no, I don't know anything about this. And they were like, okay, cool. And then so they finished touching up makeup, and then I remember getting my makeup touched up, and Vanna White just walks backstage in like normal clothes. Like I didn't even recognize her. No makeup, her hair like in a bun, and she's just like, I just wanted to say hi and wish you all good luck. And I was like, oh, you're so nice. She's so sweet. She really was. So she like came in and then said goodbye.
She's got the sweetest gig in the world.
Wait, okay, I gotta tell you that I have to tell you a story about my brother and Vanna White. Wait, I'll get
boy.
So yeah, so we got to so they taped in order of the week. So they started with Monday's episode, then Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. So all of the contestants were in the audience. If your episode wasn't taping, you sat in the audience. So if they ever show like a pan shot of the crowd, some of those people are actual contestants later in that week.
Gotcha. Makes sense. You're all there. You got a big group of people. You can't be filtering out audience members.
Yeah. But then after they taped the third episode, so after my episode, they took like a half-hour break, and if you wanted to leave, you could leave. You could stay if you want, but then they would bring in new audience people as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so I got to sit and watch the other people play, watch like the board and how all of that worked. And then a couple of times they had to stop and like reshoot some stuff. So that was really interesting, but the producers were really cool. They were super, super energetic and positive. Like you could do no wrong. Even if you like landed on a bankrupt, it was like, it's okay. You're going to like pick back up. You're going to keep going. And it's so fun. And it's so funny because I see so many comments on like Twitter and Facebook about like, why does everybody from Wheel of Fortune yell the letters? That's what they tell you to do. They tell you to like, be loud, because a lot of people don't project, and a lot of people don't enunciate their letters. So that's why they tell everybody to like basically shout the letters. So yeah, it was a really cool and like really encouraging staff that just made me so freaking excited to be there.
Gotcha. So, seems like it was pretty, easy breezy as far as like, obviously you had extensive training on the wheel, but sounds like it was just cool by having, a spot later in the week, you got to kind of see other people do it live, and that probably helped make you feel a little bit more comfortable. But like playing the actual game, you have been watching this show for probably, most of your life, and now you're actually on camera playing it. Like, what was that like in comparison to just watching it even live,
So, okay. So before I get into that, my mojo got a little screwed up right before we started taping. So I'm up at the podium getting one last touch up. All of a sudden I hear the audience applaud. Okay. And I look over and I see my brother, who is 20 at the time, coming down the stairs from the audience, and Vanna White is waiting at the foot of the step for him. Boy. And he just gives her a hug. And I was like, what? Apparently she, and I didn't even pay attention. I was so like in the zone.
Yeah.
Like, prepping me and getting me ready. Apparently she was like taking questions from the audience, like in the downtime while they were setting us up. And my brother just raised his hand and said, can I just get a hug? And she said, yeah, come on down here. And so the producer's like touching me up, and I have my head in my hands, and she's like, are you okay? What's wrong? And I was like, that's my brother hugging Vanna White. So I was like a little thrown off, and I was like, this little whore is stealing spotlight from me. So I was a little like thrown off, but I think I was like really nervous when I got up to the stage. That helped me laugh a little bit. So I did actually feel a lot calmer. Um, and then when the gameplay, it happens so fast. It happens so fast, and it's very easy. It's very easy to zone out. Like I like when I was done, I was like, what did I do for the last 30 minutes? Like, I really don't know. So one of the puzzles I solved, I buzzed in. And when I buzzed in, I hit a blank. I was like, crap, I don't know it. I don't know it. And like, there's like a second pause between like when I'm buzzed and then when I solve it. But I just like froze. And I'm not very like stage shy or anything. I don't know what happened. I just got so nervous. But then I solved it, which was great. And yeah, it's a lot of just like, you just look at the board the whole time, or at least that's what I did. Like, you don't think about anybody else around you. You don't think about Pat. You don't think about Vanna. You don't think about the audience or the other people. And that's something also that the producers told us before the show, is that these people next to you are not your competition. We want everybody to win. Obviously only one of you can go to the bonus round, but we want everybody here to do well. So even like the two people that I was up against, we were all in very good spirits with each other. So even when one of them solved the puzzle, like, I was clapping and I was excited for them. But otherwise, like, I just kept looking at what was in front of me, trying to figure it out, and then constantly checking the board of like, what letters haven't been guessed, what logically like goes here, what makes sense, what doesn't. And then and another thing that I think is really interesting that the producers tell us that a lot of people at home criticize is buying vowels. Like, they tell you, they're like, don't worry about how much the fact that you have to pay for a vowel. Like, if it's going to help you, buy a vowel. Because a lot of people at home, they're like, oh dude, why would you waste your money on a vowel? Or they clearly know the answer, why would you buy a vowel? So they really like emphasize how important that is. I was just really worried about like buying a consonant or like something stupid, but I didn't, which was great.
So I will admit, I have not been able to see the episode. I haven't had cable and I don't know how long. If
Cool.
someone wanted to see the episode, like, is it streaming anywhere, do you know of? Or did your family like record it on DVR, or like, what's the...
You can personally email me, and then for $15, I will send you a copy of my tape. I'm just kidding.
My OnlyFans is my Wheel of Fortune episode.
Can you imagine? No, ABC really has their shit on lock. It's very hard to find on the internet. I have tried. One of those Wheel of Fortune, there's I don't know the name of it, but there's a Wheel Watchers website where somebody literally types out like the entirety of the episode. So it says like, BriElle 24 Chicago graphic designer, and then like, BriElle guesses an E, there are 2 E's, like literally does a transcript of the whole episode. Wow. So you can find that on the internet, but unfortunately, unless you're like do some really deep torrenting, I don't think you're able to find it.
Wow. Which is crazy to me, because like the show's been on for how many decades, right? And
Yeah.
like, you would think that with like that large catalog of content that they would have, maybe thrown it on Hulu or sell the seasons on DVD, like, oh, and then that way, like, if you're on it, you can buy it, or if someone's just like a wheel watcher, they can buy it. See, that's so interesting to me, because I've always thought about that with game shows. It's like, unless you have like, I don't know what, the Game Show Network or like the channel it's on, how do you find it?
I think like, if I remember correctly, you could give them like $20 and they would send you a tape of your episode.
A tape, not a DVD.
or DVD, something, but like, we had like a DVR in our house, so we were able to just record it and save it while it was on. And then I have a friend who is good at torrenting things, whose name I won't mention, but he was able to record it and give me a digital copy, which was really nice.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad at least you got a copy, because like, that seems crazy to me. It's like, I hope you had fun, and like, unless yours is on syndication, you'll never see it
Right.
again.
Right.
So, okay. So like anything else you wanted to cover as far as the day, the filming, I guess, how'd you do? I have no idea.
Okay, so I went into it with the goal of, like I said, like I didn't really want to set any expectations for myself because I didn't want to get too overwhelmed. My goal was to just solve one puzzle, and then so no matter what happens, even if you like win nothing, they give you $1,000, like a pity, like thanks for coming on here, here's $1,000. So I wanted to solve one puzzle, and then I wanted to win more than the pity $1,000. That was my only goal.
The pity $1,000, which that probably covers like travel and such for your family. Like,
Yeah,
do they,
it was.
and for
It
like
was,
hotels and such?
yeah, it was about like $800 or $900 with like all the travel and whatnot. So like that covered it. So I ended up I solved 3 puzzles,
Nice.
two toss-ups and 1 regular puzzle. I took home $8,700, which I was very, very proud of.
Damn.
Yeah. And then the other contestants on my episode, the one woman, she only solved 1 puzzle and she took home $1,000. And then the winner, he had like 20 grand in something, and then he made it to the bonus round and solved the bonus round. The only thing that like really pissed me off is that he's not from Chicago, and like that's a hill I will die on. Like he was like from like Glen Ellen or something. And then he also said in his little like blurb, like when you shoot the shit with Pat Sajak at the beginning, he was like, I love the Sox and the Cubs. And like, no, you can't. No, you like one or the other.
You can't. That is not allowed.
And I was the first person that Pat Sajak talked to because I solved the first puzzle. So he always like introduces he always introduces that person first. So he started asking me about the White Sox, but he's like, but you don't live on the South Side? And I was like, no, I live on the North Side, but I am like a true White Sox fan through and through. And then this guy gets interviewed next. He's like, I like the Sox and the Cubs. I'm like, shut up. Oh.
So you got second. That's awesome.
I did, yeah.
Did better than your dad.
I did better than my dad. I won actual money, which I used. Half of it I used later that year. I took a trip to the UK. So that funded my trip. And then the rest of the money when I got into grad school in 2018, the rest of that money went to grad school.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you're able to invest it well in both the trip and the schooling.
And then I didn't get the money, which was like another thing a lot of people asked me about. So taped in March, aired in May. I didn't get my money until September. So it took like 6 months, which like I wasn't pressed for it, but
yeah, you were still living your life. It's no one's full-time off of a game show contestant.
Yeah.
Okay, so it airs in May. Did you tell people that it was going to be happening, or like, because you can't tell what happened results wise, but like, can you at least tell people like, I'm going to be on this episode so that they can watch it?
So I was able to tell people that I was going to be on, but for that 2 months I couldn't tell them when, and I couldn't tell them the results. But then 2 weeks before my air date, I got an email from the producers with my photo, like my headshot that they took at the beginning, behind the scenes. And they said, you can post this online. You can tell people the air date now, just don't tell them the results. So then I put it out like on my Facebook and my Twitter of like, hey, I'm going to be on, I think it was May 17th, at 6:30, watch it.
Nice. So what were reactions to both your family members that were there and probably others who watched it? Were they like, oh, you should have played this, or like, I'm sure there's totally people who are like, oh, you could have done better.
Yeah, overall, like everybody was just so excited because like I said, my whole, like even my extended family is really big on game shows, to a point I made earlier when we were talking about pizza delivery. I think like the idea that like ordinary people can do something really extraordinary and different is just exciting in itself. So they were hyped no matter what the outcome was. They were happy that I did well and that I didn't like fuck up or do nothing. They were all very mad at Glenn because he was not from Chicago and was not a Sox or a Cubs fan. The only person that really gave me shit was my brother, because the prize puzzle, which was a trip to Hawaii, the puzzle was bikinis and board shorts. But the word board wasn't filled out. Like the rest was starting to fill out. I didn't know the word board, and then it gets to me. I thought it was bikinis and plaid shorts because I went to Catholic school. So I guessed the letter P, which was wrong. So like he still gives me shit about that. He'll be like, oh yeah, I'm going to the beach in my board shorts. I'm like, shut up.
You got to hug Vanna White because of me. Shut up.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, you don't get to give me any grief. I give you the best gift of all. But overall, yeah, everybody was like really excited, and it was like very surreal seeing myself like on television.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's another story that you kind of shared online that I would love to hear some reactions you got from being on the show from people you didn't know.
Yeah. So the show actually re-aired about a month and a half ago.
So 3 years later. Wow.
Yeah. And the producers had called me and they're like, oh, hey, by the way, your episode is going to re-air soon. Keep an eye out for it, because they haven't been taping. They've just been playing a lot of reruns. And it's so funny because in the last 3 years, like I moved and I made this whole new slew of friends that didn't know this and that never got to see it. So I was like super excited and telling everybody about it. But I also like the internet is scary because I got contacted by a lot of people on social media. It's just like congratulating me. I had like I had a woman reach out to me on LinkedIn who she was like an attorney or like she worked for a law firm, but we had one mutual connection who was a professor of mine from Columbia. And it was just like, oh, hey, see, so-and-so, just wanted to say, saw you on Wheel of Fortune and just thought, wow, what a small world. And I was like, cool. And then a girl from my grad program, or who had graduated from my same grad program, hit me up on Instagram, and she like 100% acknowledged. She's like, this is going to sound really weird and really creepy, but I watch Wheel of Fortune all the time. I happen to hear you were an art director. I am too. And then I happen to see that we went to the same school. I just think that's cool. So I talked to her. I was like, yeah, that's like awesome and funny how small the world is. But by far the weirdest one was a guy who reached out to me on Facebook.
This is the one I was waiting to hear.
Yeah. So for the sake of protecting his identity, I'm going to call him Joe. Joe does not have any profile pictures on Facebook. Like his pictures are of all like scientists from like the 1800s, which is like already like a weird niche in itself. I don't know anything about like there's not a lot of like public facing information about him. But I randomly get this message, which I have pulled up to read if you're interested.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. Hello, BriElle. My name is Joe, and I know you're going to want to know what a complete stranger is messaging you for on Facebook. But then again, you may not be asking yourself this at all, LOL. Anyway, the reason why I'm messaging you is because I saw you on a rerun of Wheel of Fortune tonight, and both of my parents said you would be perfect for me.
Let's pause there for a second. So like he acknowledges that this is probably going to be creepy and then says like, look, my parents said you'd be perfect for me, which is what every girl wants to hear from a potential guy interested in them. Am I right?
I mean, like, yes, I definitely want to be parent approved by all of my partners, but like a guy on the internet, don't really care if your parents dig me or not. But yeah, that was a weird start. Okay, wait. So, my parents said you would be perfect for me. You're really into music and art, and really these two things would be enough for me to want to message anyone. But you also have several other features which I found quite alluring. You have a great sense of humor. You seem rather kind. and your personality is incredibly intoxicating to me. Like, I was on TV for like 20 minutes. Like, how do you, like, I know I'm a lot of personality, but like, how do you get that in?
And as we were talking about with pizza delivery, you had obviously millions of admirers watching this video.
Like, I don't
but
know what it.
no one ever messaged in this manner.
No.
You're in Wheel of Fortune that's aired what, twice in 3 years, and you get reached out to. Wow.
So then it follows, don't worry, I'm not some psychopath or anything of the sort, but what I am is lonely. When I saw you tonight, I, for the first time in a long time, didn't feel lonely anymore.
Oh.
I know you live a long way from me as I live in Georgia, but I think if someone is important and worth pursuing, then I would move mountains in order to find true love, because I've only been in love once, and that was one of the best feelings in the world that I've ever had. I completely understand if you want to ignore this message and go on about your life, and I know life is crazy, right? For so many people. That's grammatically weird. But if you decide to write me back, I would be eternally grateful. Hope this all finds you well, Joe.
Wow. So a lot of things there to unpack, both from talking about his loneliness, which like I felt bad that I laughed, but then like he just, you know, going into it, I'm like, oh, I feel bad. But like, I don't know, just the way to handle this. Like, I would never see someone on TV and then think I gotta reach out to them. Nowhere. So like, how did you feel first reading this? Like, what was your first reaction?
Well, what's hard about me is that I am a hopeless romantic. So when I first saw it, I was kind of touched. I was like, there's something sweet about this. But then like the more and more I read it, I was like, okay, like this is weird. And I never want to like, it's hard because I never want to doubt another person's feelings. Like if this guy was like so enamored by me for whatever reason,
intoxicated,
like,
allured.
He was allured by me. Like that might be a real thing that he felt. And I never want to like be dismissive to a person like that. But like to the point you just made of like somebody that would go out of his way to reach out on Facebook to a person he saw on a game show.
Which,
really
real quick,
weird.
did they ever say your last name on the show?
Yeah.
Or do you just, oh, okay. I was like, how did they find your last name?
So they say my last name at one point, but like I don't have the easiest last name. But on that website that like does a transcript of the Wheel of Fortune, like the whole episode, like they have everybody's like full names. I don't know how.
And he's a wheel watcher, clearly.
So Joe is clearly a wheel watcher. So he figured it out. Also, like my name is BriElle, which is like not the most unique name in the world, but definitely not the most common. So I feel like that probably helped him narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah. So, and it's funny because you say you're a hopeless romantic, because, you know, I'm the same way. And I think it's because a lot of us grew up, especially like our age range, like rom-coms were huge in the 90s. You know, I'm sure your mom and you watched a ton. My mom watched a ton, made me watch a ton. And so it's like, I bet this could have been like a premise of a rom-com, you know, like how they meet. But then like now in like 2020 terms, it's like that a lot of behavior in those movies are creepy. And I think it's also because we've just been exposed to so many, you know, like murder mysteries and like serial killer docs and stuff like that, that is just like, yeah, I'm gonna side on the side of safety.
Yeah. And it's so funny because at the same time, somebody that I went to college with who had feelings for me in college that I never knew about, texted me when he saw the rerun and then texted me when he saw me post this guy's message, and he's like, I don't want to sound weird, but my parents also looked at you and said that you would be really good for me. But like, that was more flattering because like, I know who he is. And I was like, okay, that's sincere. That doesn't freak me out as much, but like a random person, like,
But yeah, random person who doesn't even have like a picture of their profile picture.
No, like I don't even know what you look like. I don't know how old you are. Like I know nothing about you. And even if I did see you and like thought maybe you were attractive, like I don't do long distance anything like that.
Oh, wow. I mean, multiple ways. You allure many people, Bria.
You know, it's just is it the way I tease you about pizza? Is it the way that I buy a vowel? I don't know. Whatever gets you go.
Yeah, really. Oh, wow. So, how would you respond to this, quote unquote, Joe?
I actually messaged him back and then I blocked him. So I wrote him a message, but I was like, that's all I'm going to do. I don't want any like further communication. So I wrote him this nice message of like, thanks for taking the time to write. So glad you liked the show. Your message was very flattering. I'm not interested in any dating, but I want to thank you for the kind words. It's a weird time in the world, and I know a lot of people are lonely, but I'm glad my 15 minutes of fame provided you some type of happiness tonight. I hope you're able to find love with somebody closer to you someday. Best wishes. I'm like, that was it.
That's, I mean, you can't get any nicer, honestly. I mean, that's because like someone could have totally reacted so negatively to that. And I think you did what like some of us would hope we could do, is just say like, hey, I know there's positive intentions with this, but like it's just unfortunately not realistic. Still wish you well, and blocked, you know.
Yep.
Just in case, safety first.
Yeah, like I wanted to have my ass covered because like it did come off like very innocent and very polite. And I wanted to give that kind of response back, but like I didn't want to open the door any further for like anything else. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna end this right here.
Yeah, exactly. There's no teasing, you know. He doesn't think you're gonna go deep for deep dish. I mean,
No.
he's scrolling on YouTube and just like, she's in my life again.
You know what? He probably is a guy on YouTube looking at porn parodies because he is lonely. To which I wish you well, sir.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of what it was like to be on a game show, because I've had some friends who maybe were like studio audience members of some game shows, but like they didn't really describe it because like, it's just here in the audience, you know. But to actually go through this audition process, eventually get word in the mail for like a second audition, and then get actually on the show and so forth, and then get a response like this afterwards for a rerun.
Yeah.
What a wild ride.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, this is definitely up there with pizza delivery on my list of like cool shit that I've done in my life. But you know, this doesn't involve being in a porn parody, so this is easier maybe sometimes to talk about. But yeah, and it literally like nobody, only one person has ever been on Wheel of Fortune twice, and it was because like the show screwed up, like they misheard a letter he said or something, so they let him come back on the show. But it literally is a once in a lifetime thing.
Yeah,
So I'm very, very blessed and very excited that I got to do it.
that's awesome. And you did well. You got to spend money on some awesome things. That's awesome. Yeah, and I think it's so cool that you got that opportunity, but also it seemed like it just was a good experience, you know, because I'm sure some people, you know, are involved, maybe not necessarily with game shows, but it's like they say never meet your heroes, or like things, you know, maybe they go and see this certain thing and it's not what they expect. But it sounds like overall good experience for you and your family.
Yeah, it was really good. Like Pat and Vanna are genuinely super, super nice people, super, super friendly. Like I said, the producers wanted everybody to just have a good time and have the best experience. And that really is what made it for me. I mean, aside from like the money and the solving the puzzles, like the atmosphere was awesome. And also like being able to share it with my family was really cool too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for coming on here and talking to me about it and getting to share your story, and with Joe and everything, all your admirers. Do you want to, in these videos, plug like social media at all, or like a website or anything you'd like to share? It's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm working full time right now, but I am always freelancing. So I'm a designer and an art director. So if you ever need a logo or you need a website design, you could totally hit me up. My website is BriElleMunizzi.com. And then all of my social media is at capital E Munizzi, so spelled out capital E Munizzi because there's capital E in the middle of my name.
All right then. Well, yeah. Any final thoughts, whether it's on Wheel of Fortune or pizza delivery that we didn't get to cover?
If you ever want to be in a game show or if you ever audition for a game show, be yourself and just be happy to be there. That's what they want. They just want to see that you're happy to be there. And I think the same goes for being in sketch comedy. Just prove that, just show that you're happy to be there and you'll get far.
Yeah, just have fun. And actually, what we need to do now is a game show porn parody. That's what we just a crossover of your two big things.
I'd like to buy an E, please. That would be awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Well, it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for, taking time out of your schedule to talk.
Yeah, this was awesome. Thanks so much.